This is Des. Welcome to my podcast, According to Des, where I interview people with passions, hobbies, or side hustles trying to live their best lives by following their dreams and pursuing their goals. Get ready to be inspired. On today's episode, I'll be interviewing Juniper Waller. I'm so excited to talk to her because she is a vocal empowerment coach and breathwork guide, and I think that's really, really awesome. I'm so excited to learn more. I've heard about breathwork before, but I don't know that much about it, and I've never done it before or anything like that, so I'm so interested in learning about her journey, how she got into breathwork and how she became a guide, and the benefits of that. I've been getting more and more into meditation and things like that, so I'm really excited to learn more about it. And I'm excited to hear about her path and her journey, how she went from going to college, going into social justice work, and going to herbal school, and then going into breathwork. And she also, so cool, she's also in a band. She started a band in 2017, which is amazing. So definitely check out Juniper on social media. She does meditation sessions on her Instagram, and they're so calming and relaxing. She has such a soothing voice. Really, really nice. I love it. And check out her music. It's so cool. Her and her band, they write all their own songs. So awesome. I'm so excited to talk to her today and learn all about her and her journey and breath work and her vocal empowerment coaching. So here we go. Let's talk to Juniper. Hey everyone, I am here with Juniper, and she is a vocal embodiment coach and breathwork guide. So I'm so excited to talk to you today, Juniper. Thank you so much for joining me.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. So you're in California, is that right?
Yep, I'm in Sacramento, California.
Oh, okay. How is it going over there with the fires and everything? So I'm in Colorado and we have fires over here too.
Right. Yeah, it's intense. The air is really bad where I am. Luckily, the fires are a good, safe distance away from me and my loved ones. My family's down in Oakland. That's where I'm from. There's like a fire the size of Rhode Island between us.
Oh
So,
my gosh.
that's intense. But
Wow.
yeah, it's just becoming the new normal here in California with all the other stressors of this year. It's, yeah, extra stressful for
Yeah,
sure.
absolutely. It does feel that way, unfortunately. Well,
Mhm.
I'm glad you and your family are safe. That's really good. And
Thank you.
yeah, the air quality here was pretty bad too. I'm pretty far away from the fires, but we could still smell the smoke, and the air quality
Hmm.
was pretty bad. But it feels like over the last week it's gotten a lot better, which is
Good.
nice.
Yeah.
So, yeah, hopefully they get them contained, but it does feel like it's just kind of the new normal, especially for California now. I saw that you've been doing meditation on your Instagram, and one was like a grounding meditation because of the stressors of the fire and COVID and everything. So I thought that was really great.
Thanks. Yeah, absolutely. That's my big thing right now and always is acceptance and a version of self-care that is really acceptance based because for a long time I felt like a lot of the practitioners that I was going to back when I was younger in New York City, which is where I lived for a long time, it was like they were asking me to kind of leave my troubles at the door and just come in and decompress. And I always had a lot of trouble with that. I've really struggled with anxiety in my life, and I want my practitioners and my guides and the people that I'm calling on to help me with my own self care to be more accepting of the realities of our situation. And I think, like, in a year like this year, that's more important than ever. It's really impossible to forget how much scary stuff is going on, but we still have to reset our nervous system. We still have to give our bodies a chance to decompress, right?
Mm-hmm.
But we have to do that in a place that's also accepting of the realities of our present day. So that's something I think a lot about.
So true. And
Yeah.
just the way our society is now, too, that everybody, I feel like, is just in a constant state of stress.
Yeah.
Take me back a little bit. So you're a vocal embodiment coach, you're a breathwork guide, but you're also a singer and songwriter. But I want to talk about how you got to this point. So when you were a little girl, what did you want to be when you grew up? What were you
Yeah.
thinking?
It was such a winding path. What was I thinking? So, both of my parents are musicians, and
Oh,
there
okay.
are so many singer-songwriters in my family. I can trace back to the 1800s in Ukraine, women who were
Wow.
singers in my family. So that's sort of the family trade For me, so I always wanted to be a musician in some sense. I always wrote songs from when I was little and sang. I loved
Oh.
performing, but I had a lot of other interests too. I was that kid who was like, I'm going to be the first woman president. I'm going to be a fireman, just like everything.
Yeah.
And I'm still like that, right? I still wish that I could do everything and have 100 different lives. But I've had a lot of different lives and worn a lot of hats already. So, yeah, when I was little, I loved to write. I was really creative and I identified as an artist from a very young age. I went to Sarah Lawrence College in New York, which doesn't have majors, so that worked well for me because I got to
Mm-hmm.
dabble.
Yeah, that's great.
Didn't work so well in the, career path of my 20s, but it's all okay now. Graduating in the recession of 2009, like with no degree except a liberal arts degree was not the best.
Yeah, you must have
But
felt super secure.
right, just like so, I live in New York City now, and the Census Bureau saved me. I worked at the Census Bureau for like
Oh,
the
did
first
you?
because it was 2009, so in preparation for the 2010 census. That was my first
Oh, wow.
job out of college. In college, I went to college to write poetry. Pretty early on, I took a class called Women in the Black Revolt that really politicized me, really opened my eyes. And I'd always been like a kid that cared a lot about what was going on in the world. I'm very empathic, so I always felt the energy of adults. And that class really opened my eyes to a lot of things in our country and in the world. And I continued kind of taking history and politics and sociology and different stuff in college. And so when I graduated, I got involved with political activism in New York City, and I dabbled in a lot of different realms. I did housing rights stuff and anti-war work and anti-racism work, and then I became a legal worker. So I was a paralegal at a civil rights law firm. Really challenging work. We were mostly representing people and families of people who had been targeted by the NYPD and either shot and killed or stop and frisked and beat up. That was really heavy work and very educational. That was what really turned me into an abolitionist way back in 2010. So I was doing a lot of political work in New York, and then Occupy Wall Street came to town and I got involved with that. I really burned out. My whole body was just not having it anymore. The stress of all the things that I was doing, and I felt like I had the world on my shoulders and like so many people were depending on me, and I really burned out. Long story short, I came back to California to basically heal my nervous system and to pursue my interest in holistic health, which had also been an interest from when I was a little kid. I remember the first time I did energy healing, I was in 7th grade. And
Really?
yeah,
Oh my God. I feel like I just found out about it a few years ago.
I didn't know I was doing it, but I was really interested in religion. My dad and I would go to Borders Books after dinner every Tuesday. We go out for dinner and we go to Borders Books, and I just like sit in the world religion section and read about different religions, and I was studying Wicca, right? Like lots of
Oh.
12-year-old girls were. They didn't call it energy healing, but there was like a spell for healing.
Oh.
And so, yeah, the first time I did energy healing was in math class when I was in 7th grade. And then in my 20s, I figured out that that's actually a thing and that I did it when I was young. I received a Reiki attunement when I guess it was 2012. Came back to California to study herbalism, and I went to a school to learn about herbalism for like a 9-month program. And during that whole time, I was disgusted with the cultural appropriation and the kind of blind eye to systemic racism and systemic oppression. And then I kind of
Within your program, you mean, or?
kind of within the wellness industry in
Oh,
general.
oh, okay.
Yeah. But that's something that a lot of people are bringing up now, today. the racism in the wellness industry and kind of cultural appropriation from everything from yoga to herbalism. You know, here we are on the stolen land of the native people of this region using their native plants in the way that they did it, and they're not here and we're not talking about them, right?
Right.
And so there were a lot of contradictions. I felt intuitively that racism and systemic inequality are a public health crisis, and that we need to be talking about that when we're talking about health and healing. So then I got really disillusioned with that. My story is always just like a series of like, I did this and I got really disillusioned, so I left. And then I did this, I got really disillusioned. So, yeah, angsty poet till the bitter end. But
I guess so. Yeah.
so then I went back to being a barista, and I worked at a grocery store in the health and wellness section and recommended supplements to people, but I wasn't really pursuing that.
Mm-hmm.
And then meanwhile, in herb school, I was just kind of, you know, writing songs with my guitar and feeding my artistic side privately. I started a band in 2017. And
Wow.
I've been all over the
Gosh.
place.
Yeah,
and
you
and
have.
and I started the band and started gigging with the band, and simultaneously I started teaching voice, kind of just as like a side thing to do in the meantime. I'd been studying voice for 10 years off and on.
And what do you mean by voice exactly?
Oh, singing.
Oh, okay. Okay,
So during
gotcha.
that time, I was a singer in my band, and then I was a voice singing teacher or vocal coach,
And what
right?
is your band called?
My band is called the Gold Souls.
Oh, I love that.
Thanks. So we play original funk soul blues, and until coronavirus, we were pretty busy. But
Mm-hmm. Have you done any virtual concerts or anything like
we
that?
sure have. Yeah, we've done a lot of them actually.
Oh, really?
hmm
Oh my gosh.
Usually we do it on Facebook Live
Oh my gosh, I
on
have to
our
check that
page.
out. That's amazing.
Yeah, it's fun. I mean, it's nothing like a live show, but it's better than nothing for sure, you know.
Absolutely.
We can
Yeah.
interact with people on the chat. We take requests and
Oh, that's
stuff like that.
awesome. Yeah, I've been seeing a lot of musicians have been doing online concerts and just how resilient bands are being that they're like, hey, we're going to throw on a concert. And I know some are taking donations and whatnot. So
hmm
it's really nice. I think it's a really nice idea. Obviously not as great as in person, but that's really flexible.
Yes, it's definitely better than nothing. And we play in our masks, by the way.
Oh, you do? Okay.
So
Wow. So
I
that's
sing
tough.
with my mask on.
That's tough. Wow.
It's interesting, you know, it's different.
And do you write all the songs for your band?
In my band, we all are songwriters.
Oh, you
So,
all are.
yeah,
Wow.
I write a good portion of them, or we co-write them together. It's a talented group.
That's awesome. And how did you get into breath work?
I came into breathwork because as a singer, I've always been very interested in breathing, right?
Mm-hmm.
How our breathing affects our body and how we can breathe intentionally. And singers, there's like theories, so many theories among singers about the best way to breathe. And
Oh.
every voice teacher has like their particular breathing strategy, and it's up for debate. What I've found recently is breathing is kind of a contentious issue in general. There's not a whole lot of research on the effects of different kinds of breathing in the body. I got really interested in breathing when I started teaching singing, because I'd learned all these different ways of breathing, and then I kind of formulated my own philosophy about the best way to breathe based on what I did and what my students were doing. I started having students, and this is the vocal embodiment coaching is also connected, without my prompting, telling me about a traumatizing experience with their voice early on in their lives. Okay,
Okay.
so it turns out that a lot of people have something that happened to them earlier in their life where someone that they trusted or someone whose opinion they cared about said, you have an annoying voice, or don't talk about that, or stop singing. I had a client who was singing in the car as a little girl and got in a car accident and had the literal wind knocked out of her while she was
Oh.
singing. A lot of us have stuff happen early in life that can shut us down and can kind of be limiting belief in our mind that we shouldn't share our voice with the world, that it's safer to be quiet, especially, people who are socialized as women, but all sorts of people, really.
That's so true. And that's something I feel like a lot of people don't really think about either.
Hmm.
That those comments, they do really build up. And I feel like, especially for singers,
Hmm.
because that's your power, is your voice. And to be
Right,
told not to sing, or your voice is bad, or
right.
be quiet, or your voice is annoying, that would affect someone a lot.
So it started with my students who were singers, but now I have clients who are not singers and aren't even really interested in singing, but who just want to get in touch with their voice in general.
Wow.
Because our voices, it's all of our power, right?
Mhm.
And for singers, it's more obvious. For everyone, your voice is a big part of your power. One of the sayings that I like to riff on is speak truth to power, right? How
Mhm.
are we supposed to stand up for ourselves or for others if we don't even know how to free our voice,
Mhm.
right? If we don't even know how to share our message. That's where things started to overlap, where being a singing teacher began to overlap with my work as a healer, as a guide. And so breathwork was the missing piece.
Wow. So it
And
kind of connected all the dots.
it really did. I started doing breath work and I was like, wow, personally, this is the modality that I've been missing because I was ready to shift my energy. I was ready to feel my feelings. Breath work is very heart opening, it's very voice opening. It gets you out of your head and into your body and into your emotions. And that's why
Mhm.
it's so effective, right? Even for people who hate meditation and don't know how to meditate, like breath work is kind of the workaround. It'll get you out of your thoughts and get you into like what's really going on inside. When I found breath work, I was like, oh my God, this is the thing that I've been missing, the next piece of my healing journey. And also, the first time I did breath work, I was like, I need to offer this
Wow.
to my students at least, right? Because it gets you into this place where you can get out of your own way, even if just for a little while. That's why it's become such a big part of my work, especially now this year. I've really pivoted to offering a lot more of the energy healing side of things because there's so much more stress and so much more urgency for people to really get out of their own way and say what needs to be said.
I've never done breath work before, but I've heard that it's
Mhm.
extremely powerful and emotional and intense. I've heard just
Mhm.
stories of people that have done it the first time and have cried and
Mhm.
unleashed just a river.
Yes. But then were they okay after
Yes,
that?
yes.
Yeah.
From what I've heard, I mean, I've heard people kept going back to it from the stories I've heard of people who have tried it, people I know that have tried it. They said it's
Yeah.
super emotional, but they loved it and kept going back.
Right. Yes. That's a really common experience is
Wow.
a river of emotion. And it's not just sadness, right? It's like people release anger, people feel pleasure in ways that they haven't been able to access. It's everything. And I do think that's something that gets underrepresented about breath work. It's like, oh, you'll just cry so much. It's like, you will cry, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
that is a direct route to releasing energy in the body. That's why a lot of people cry because they just got a lot of stuff that needs to go,
Oh,
that
yeah.
needs to shift and move. The thing is, it's so clearing. So it's not like one of those crying fits where afterwards you're just like, am I ever going to be okay? Like, it's not that kind of thing. Yes, you cry, but it's super cleansing. I think a lot of people feel a lot more open and a lot clearer and a lot more directed afterwards. Like, oh, wow,
Wow.
I didn't realize I was holding all that,
Mm-hmm.
right? People feel lighter. I always hear that is that people feel lighter after their first
Wow.
breathwork session.
And how does a breathwork session go?
It's a little mysterious, and there's a few reasons for that. One thing that's mysterious about it is the word breathwork can be applied to literally anything you're doing with your breath, right? And
Okay.
so when I say breathwork, I'm talking about a particular breathing technique that is a three-part breath. Everything happens through the mouth, a
Oh.
breath into the belly, a breath into the chest, and an exhale, and it's all through the mouth, which
Oh.
is not how we breathe normally. A normal healthy breath is in through the nose. For this particular breath work, we do it all through the mouth. Part of that is that a lot of people think that a mouth breath is a more heart opening breath.
Okay.
So that gets more into the energetics of it. The way a breathwork session works is usually we start with a grounding meditation. I explain how it's done. It's done lying down, flat, so with nothing under your head. A lot of the time I'll prompt people to have a blanket and maybe crystals or candles or anything that like gets you in the zone, right, for
Mm-hmm.
your healing process or sets aside the space and time as a healing space. Then we go into the active breathing, which we do the active breathing for around 25 minutes. And we do it to a playlist. So that's a really
Oh.
fun part of it for me is I get to choose the music and kind of the journey through the music. After about 25 minutes, sometimes more, sometimes less, of active breath, then we go into a resting period, which is like a release, a meditation, and sometimes we'll do some visualization. And
Okay.
that's it. It's a reset. It's really very much like resetting your body, your nervous system. And so I always recommend that people do some journaling or a creative practice, you know, a low pressure creative practice. Take a bath or just drink some tea and chill out afterwards and for the next few days, and lots of water, especially if you cried, right?
Yeah, yeah. I saw that you offer group breathwork
hmm
sessions. Do you have your beginner first timers in there too, or do you do those separate?
I do have beginner first timers in my group. I always explain the process every group. So my only group offering at this moment is called Breathwork for Collective Liberation, and it's the second Saturday of every month. And so we do it on Zoom. Often there's a lot of first timers at that one.
Oh, okay.
It's a great first timer one. There isn't really like an advanced breathwork thing. Maybe
Okay.
some people do that. I would argue that that's not necessary. Everybody has their own journey, and I'm just guiding it. It's really a self care practice, so there's no need to have an advanced version.
Gotcha. Okay.
hmm
Wow, very cool. Yeah, it sounds very interesting. So when
hmm
you were growing up and going to school and everything, and you were into all these different things, you know, the herbal healing and the singing, and did you ever face any sort of like comments or judgments from people that you went on this kind of winding, unconventional path?
Yeah. I feel like so much of it has been me caring what other people think, right?
Mm,
Like, who
mm-hmm.
cares, right?
Yeah.
But yes, I've definitely gotten criticism and felt criticism from people who knows how much
From
of it's real and how much of it's
From
perceived.
yeah, like who? From who? Because you said your family's all musicians, so I would assume it wouldn't have came from them, or did it?
My parents are so sweet. They're so supportive. They just believe in me like so blindly. And
Wow.
so, and so I've been very, very fortunate in that way. They're just like, oh, now you're doing that. Okay, cool. I'm sure it's going to be
Oh,
great, whatever it is.
that's amazing.
It is. It's really amazing. I think definitely from my peers, right?
Hmm.
Definitely a lot of raised eyebrows and side eyes about, oh, I'm not doing that anymore. Now I'm doing this, right? Like after
Oh,
when I'm catching up with a with an old
okay.
friend. From each community that I'm a part of, there's especially in music, it's like you got to pay your dues. In every profession, you know, like in the music community or in the
Yeah.
health community or activist community, like, but I'd say in every profession, you know, there's a certain amount of dues paying that's expected. And so I think that that's the hardest part about being someone who takes a winding path and has multiple interests that kind of all intersect. I mean, I'm 33 right now, and this is the first year of my life where I felt like I'm harmoniously blending my interests in a way that's both satisfying and sustainable to me. Every moment of my life up to this year, for whatever reason, I've always felt like I have to put at least one of the things aside. Why did I spend 10 years as an activist if I'm just going to be a singer? And so I'd say the main criticism comes from myself, for
Wow.
sure. And of course, there's a lot of society that's been imposed on me that's
Mm-hmm.
putting those criticisms in my head, right? It's not like
Yeah.
I just made all that up. But I do think that I'm the number one person who stood in my way
Wow.
as far as it being okay to have gone down such a winding path. That's just my journey. That's just the direction that my journey is taking. But, it really makes me so sympathetic to other people who kind of don't know why they're here. I've
Mm-hmm.
always felt really purposeful, even though it was so hard to explain how that could be, that
Yeah,
I'm just all
right.
over the place. That's something about our society that's dying off, is the need to like be in a pigeonhole and be really linear and know what you're doing and know where you're going. And some people will always be that way, and that's great for them. I think that kind of the shaming of not being that way is ready to go.
I agree though. I think that I don't know if it's just because of, like you said, the community I'm in with all these different like people like you, like creatives. These are people I follow on social media and that I'm friends with, people kind of that either have a full-time job but they're doing all this amazing kind of stuff on the side also, or these people that
Mm-hmm.
just took a winding path. I don't know if it's because I'm just in that kind of community and know a lot of people in that kind of community, or if it really
Mm-hmm.
is dying off because I just see that kind of path of going to school, then graduating, then getting married, then having kids and having a full time career. It's that linear path isn't as popular anymore, I don't think.
It's also less guaranteed. It used to be that if you just kind of followed the rules, you'd have your 2.5 kids in a house and your job and your retirement, etc. And I think that that illusion has been shattered. Why do it then?
Exactly. I really thought when I was a kid, like, I'm going to turn 18 and I'm going to have my full time job and buy a house. And I
Right.
just bought a house when I was 32. And I'm like, what?
Well,
What the heck happened?
congratulations.
Thank you. I'm like, what happened? It was supposed to be when I was 18. What, I just think we're kind of fed
Right.
this idea of what our life's going to be like, and we get to that point and we're like, what, where's the house? Where's the car? Where's the kids? Where's the marriage? I don't what's going on? And I think people realize like we've been kind of fed a lie since we were born.
Yeah. For those of us who kind of never wanted that, we're the ones who are kind of leading the way if we don't have to do that. But
Mhm.
then, yeah, I think more and more people all the time are seeing that there are other routes to happiness. There are other routes to
Absolutely.
success. There are other routes to a
Yeah.
family, other versions of that. I think that's really good. Also, you were talking about, so I'm a really big fan of The Artist's Way by Julia Cameron.
Oh,
Um,
it's my next book I'm starting. I'm so excited.
awesome.
Yeah, it's on
Yeah.
my nightstand because I'm almost done with a book, and that is next.
You're gonna love it. You gotta do it though. You gotta do
I
all the
know.
prompts. You
Mm,
gotta do what she says. You gotta just put yourself in Julia's hands for 12 weeks,
I do.
okay?
I have to.
Because it is such an amazing process. And I don't know if I believed this before the first time I did it last year, but now I am such a believer in her. Oh wait, no, I did it two years ago. I did half of it, and then I fell
Wow.
off, and then I did the whole thing last year. But
I've heard
uh,
that's common though, starting it and
it's
then going back and
but I
restarting.
super recommend going all the way the first
Yeah.
time. I really agree with her that everybody is creative and that
Mhm.
everybody's an artist. I think that this is part of that story that we all believe about our path in life. I think part of that story
Mhm.
is we put aside childish things, we put aside our creativity, right?
Yep.
And we give that up in service of this more important thing, right? The
Yes.
career, the family, etc.
Yep.
So I think that we really are missing something in our lives, no matter who we are, when we put aside the idea that I could spend the afternoon listening to a record and doodling. That's not a legitimate use of 3 hours, but binging a Netflix show is.
Mhm.
Like, why? you
That's so
know?
true. That's so
Nothing
so true.
against binging a Netflix show. I love TV. It's a great kind of art that I love to
Mhm.
consume. But then I also, some evenings, just want to, like, yeah, lie on the floor and doodle while I'm listening to Miles Davis or something, you know?
That's so true, and that's something that I really struggle with is kind of a time-oriented person. Even as a kid, I was always asking what time it was. I always had a watch on. I was always checking the time. I get really anxious when I'm late. I'm always everywhere 20 minutes early, except for work. I'm late to work every day, but everywhere else, every other appointment, I'm super early. It makes me so anxious. But if I sit there and I love coloring, I just love it. If I
Yes.
sit there and color, I feel like I have these messages in my head saying, you are wasting your time. Why are you doing this stupid activity when you could be doing something more productive? And that's something I
Mm-hmm.
really struggle with, that I constantly feel like I have to be productive in one way or another, or I feel this immense guilt.
Yeah.
And it's really something I've been trying to work on the last few months, because I've just realized it, that I'm just constantly thinking about the things I didn't do during the day, and it makes me anxious at night. And
Right.
so, yeah, and I think that really is kind of a message of our society. It's always like a contest of who's the busiest, and that makes you more of a worthwhile person because you're productive and busy, and
Right.
somebody else who's just hanging out doing art or drawing is lazy and wasting their time.
Oh
And
my God.
it's
Yeah.
really ingrained.
It is, and it's sad. It's
It
so
is.
sad. One thing that came up for me when you were saying that is that's totally the kind of thing that a person would work on in a breathwork session.
Really.
Yeah, and so I just wanted to flag that because if anyone's wondering, like, what kind of a thing could I work on? Well, anything. But, like,
Yeah.
that's such a great thing to work on in a breathwork session is these beliefs that you're realizing you believe and you don't know where they came from necessarily, but they're just in you and you don't want to have them running your life anymore, right?
Yeah.
The other thing that came up for me while you're saying that is that doer energy that you've had in you ever since you were a little kid, that is creative energy, right?
Mm.
That's what that is. That is your life force. All energy can be directed, all energy can be guided, right? And so
Hmm.
this is something that I've worked with a lot over the last few years because I'm a very anxious person and I'm not like looking at the time all the time, but I have a lot of anxiety and
Yeah.
I'm an achiever. Every day starts at zero. I wake up in the morning, and if I don't get these many things done, then I feel like a waste, and the day was a waste, and everything's a waste, and right? And it's
Oh my
like
gosh, that's exactly me. You're exactly describing me.
one thing that's really helped me accepting discomfort, right?
Yeah.
Accepting that I'm going to be uncomfortable because I have all this energy, right? So a lot of
Hmm.
my life, I'm just going to be like, oh, what's happening? What needs to,
Yes.
like, and
Yes.
just sitting with that and being like, cool, like, that is cool. That is cool that I have that in me. I'm grateful that I have that in me because it's what keeps me doing cool stuff.
Yes.
If I didn't have that, I wouldn't have done any of this cool stuff.
That's so
If
true.
I wasn't always a little unsatisfied with what I'm doing and what other people are doing, and, if I didn't have that righteous indignation about herb school or whatever, right? And then the other side of that is acceptance, and that's why meditation is so important to me, right? Because I need to balance that or it gets really edgy, right?
Hmm.
And I don't want to be edgy. I don't want to be aggressive or angry or any of that. I do need to honor that I have so much energy running through me and this intense idea of right and wrong. Just finding the gray area in there and just sitting with it and just being comfortable with being uncomfortable.
And that's so hard. I know it's so hard for me, but I know it's so hard for a lot of people.
Yeah,
People in general do not like feeling bad, do not like feeling uncomfortable, do not like feeling sad. Any sort of negative
totally.
feeling, we just resist so much. And I always say that it's okay to be sad. It's okay to
Totally.
be uncomfortable. It's okay to be mad. These are normal emotions. These are just emotions everybody feels. So,
Oh my God, yes. On that note, and I didn't tell you this because it's not something that I lead with, but I'm in recovery from substance use, and that's such a big thing
wow.
for so many artists
Yep.
and other people.
Mhm.
Everybody's creative. But for so many people, right, we have this like gnawing energy and we don't want to feel bad. We don't want to feel it.
Yep.
And so we all have different ways of kind of suppressing it and not feeling it. And for a lot of us, we turn to drinking or
Yep.
smoking weed or whatever, right?
Yeah.
And
And I think kind of the new addiction that I'm actually going to be interviewing somebody soon about. is technology, the
Ah,
internet. People don't realize that, yeah, there's people that abuse substances to drown out whatever negative feeling. But what about when we feel upset? So we go on Instagram to
right.
feel better, to get that instant feeling of
It's
gratification.
easier
It's
than
easy.
any of those. I
Yeah.
mean,
Yeah.
to put a substance in your body, you have to acquire the substance and
Mm-hmm.
then put it in your body and then wait for it to affect you. And Instagram is instant, and
It's
you're just
instant.
like, yeah, you get that
Yep.
hit immediately. It's always in your pocket. I am curious to know if there are people who are working like a 12-step program around addiction to social media because it
Yeah.
definitely has so many of the same aspects.
Oh, absolutely. And I heard about this years ago. I don't know how popular it is, but I heard, and this was years ago, so I could be wrong. I'm going to actually look it up later, but I think I heard that Japan opened up the world's first treatment center for internet addiction.
Oh my God, wow.
So I've heard that before. I don't know how true it is. I'm going to look it up, but I mean, it's a huge problem. So the person I'm interviewing next week, he actually, his whole thing is helping people to kind of detox from social media, to get off of social media and to kind of disconnect from technology a little bit, because it's
Yeah,
just such a problem when you feel bad in yourself and then you have these negative feelings, so you post a picture to get the likes to feel better.
yeah,
It's not a healthy cycle, and people don't realize that, I don't think.
right.
Do you think that breath work helps with your recovery?
Yes, absolutely. A lot of people have used breath work in recovery from addiction.
Mm,
It's really common, and
wow.
I definitely recommend it for that. And the other thing about breath work, and some people might take issue with me saying this, but it's a head change. When you do an intense breath work session, you are not the way you were when you started it,
Really?
right? So you've shifted your energy. If you were feeling stuck before it, you're not feeling stuck after it. For so many of us in recovery from addiction, that is what we were using our thing for, right? The thing that we got addicted to. That's what we were using it for. We were using it to change the way we felt in the moment. True of technology and the internet as well. Even if the feeling is just boredom, the reason we're turning to that thing is because we don't want to feel like this anymore. If we were satisfied feeling like this, we wouldn't go to that.
Yeah.
Or maybe we would go to it, but we would go to it for different reasons, right? For healthier reasons.
Right.
Um, for a lot of people in the recovery community, it's like I drank when I was sad, I drank when I was happy, I drank when I was celebrating, I drank when I won, I drank when I lost, I drank when I was bored. It was just like, you know, people just have something inside them where they're just not content just being. And that's why we turn to those things. So, not that I'm saying that breath work should be used in that way. Definitely not. That would be really intense. I don't really recommend people do breath work more than like once a week. I think once a
Oh,
week is
okay.
like a great amount to do a major breath work
Oh,
session.
gotcha. Okay.
You can do less intense breathwork sessions more frequently. So there's a
Mm.
lot of wiggle room there. I'm not like saying, warning, don't do breathwork more than once a week. But you certainly wouldn't do it with the frequency with which you look at Instagram, right?
Right.
All that being said, I think that it shifts consciousness. I think that that's something that actually makes it a wonderful tool in
Wow.
recovery.
And do you think that shift happens after the first time somebody tries it, or is it after a few times?
It happens about 7 minutes into the first time that someone
Really?
tries it.
Wow.
Yeah, that's not to say that you're going to work through a lifetime of trauma or resentment or
Mm-hmm.
in one session. Absolutely not. It's not a magical cure-all, and it's best when used in collaboration with other forms of other therapeutic modalities
Mm,
like therapy, right? Like
right.
I think that talk therapy is a really awesome tool.
I don't know
Um,
if you know this, but I'm a therapist.
right. Okay. I do remember that
Yes,
now.
yes. But I work with kids and teens. I haven't worked with
Cool.
adults, but yeah. And I agree. There's, I think, a lot of judgments from within holistic healing and as well as talk therapy or other kinds of therapy where they're kind of like, oh, don't do that thing, like do this thing. But I think a combination and collaboration works really well for some people.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. I think breathwork paired with therapy is amazing. Paired with other energy healing, paired with acupuncture, like,
Mm-hmm.
just do it all, right?
Yeah.
Whatever feels like it's working for you, do that thing.
Yep, absolutely. Yes. Do you think that people, once they do a few breathwork sessions or they do the guided breathwork and learn how to do it, like they are able to do it on their own, or you feel like it should always be guided by someone?
I definitely support people doing breath work on their own. And
Okay.
I think that there's a lot of circumstances where it can be more potent to have someone else there guiding you who has an understanding of what you're working through and can kind of prompt you. Because like I said, it's voice opening. I encourage people to make sounds during the breath work to release any sounds that come up, and then also sometimes I'll prompt someone to repeat after me, to say something or to yell something, right? And that's all part of the shifting the energy. So it's kind of stuff like that where the other person prompts you and is kind of there, kind of just creating the container for you. I think that can be very powerful. That being said, I've had some really amazing breathwork experiences by myself, just breathing to music. So I'd say once people know how to do the breathing, go ahead
Mm-hmm.
and experiment with doing it alone. It's a safe thing to do, and it can be really a wonderful inner journey for yourself.
Wow. That
Hmm.
sounds amazing. I'm definitely going to have to go to one of your group breathwork
September
sessions.
12th.
Yeah, because I've never done it before. I'm very interested. And I tried Reiki one time
Hmm.
and I loved it. And I've always
Hmm.
wanted to go back and do it again, but I haven't. And I did acupuncture one time, loved that. So I've
Nice.
dabbled in a little bit of the holistic healings and I really love them, but I just haven't gone back to do them. So I'm definitely going to have to look into that more.
Yes. The group class is cool because even though it's on Zoom, you're breathing with other people, and it kind of creates this energetic circle that I love. A one on one session is more of an investment, but the group class is super affordable and I think actually has, in a lot of ways that added benefit.
And how
Hmm.
many people are usually in the group?
Around 10 is the
Okay.
sweet spot. Right now, I'm just doing the one group a month, so it's the second Saturday. One thing that I've done and that I'm open to is putting together a group. Going back to kind of when I started really wanting to become a healer, become a guide, and I mentioned that I felt like I had to leave my troubles at the door, when I go into like a fancy yoga studio.
Mm-hmm.
I also found it really hard to leave my work, right? The activist work that I was doing, and to leave all these people that I had been kind of really enmeshed with, working and brainstorming with, and then to go and do my own healing. So, one thing that I'm really interested in doing more of is doing breathwork sessions with groups that are already formed, right?
Right.
So,
Yeah.
like, whether it's your office and everyone in the office is going to do it at home on Zoom, you've got your space, you've got your privacy, but you're kind of all going through this experience together, or, activist groups or bands or families,
Yeah.
right? Creating a container for an already existing group of people to have a transformative experience collectively and personally, individually. I'm really interested in that. I think that that's one of the keys to creating change right now is we need to normalize self-care in our communities.
Mm-hmm.
And part of that is like doing self-care as community care. Whether that means that everyone in the office comes to a breathwork session or everyone in the family gets their own therapist, or everyone, like
Mm-hmm.
whatever it is, it's got to be that no one's left behind not being given the resources and capabilities to deal with their own stuff.
Yeah, that's an incredible idea. I love that. Recently, so I'm a part of this fellowship for my job, and recently we did a group activity on Zoom, and a Native American woman led us all in a cacao ceremony. And
Wow.
we got the package in the mail ahead of time. So we got the cacao and we got the instructions, and it was for the element of air. So we were told to light an incense. That's what the instruction said. And she led us through this cacao ceremony and meditation as a group on Zoom. And it was so amazing. And I really loved it. So I just love that idea of doing something like that. And, she did it for us, for our group, which is a fellowship for our job. So that's, I think, a lot more people are kind of, agencies and corporations and stuff are getting into that idea of like, I do have to take care of my employees and make sure they're doing well and take care
Right.
of their well-being. So I think there is definitely a big market for that. I think that that would be an amazing experience for people as a group.
Yeah. Right. And then it's like the next time you get together after you've done that, it's like you've been through something together,
Yes.
right?
Hmm.
Which creates like this sense of collective experience.
Yeah, that's so true.
What a
That's
great
really cool.
thing, the cacao ceremony. I
It
love it.
was great. I loved it. It was a really great experience.
Yeah. Sweet.
Really, really cool. And then I guess, now it would be everything's kind of virtual, but kind of like the idea of those kind of things being in person too. One thing that I had a question about is a lot of people kind of in these helping and healing professions feel like really icky about charging for their services because and I feel like even like veterinarians get this a lot too. Because I rescue animals and I deal with vets a lot, and they just get that like, well, I thought you loved animals. How are you charging me for that? And do you ever kind of feel that guilt or have had that experience of people kind of yelling at you about your prices because you're a healer? You shouldn't be charging people to like heal them.
So I haven't personally, thankfully, ever been yelled at about that. I definitely am familiar with that happening. And also, as a musician, it happens. I'd say it happens even more as a musician
Really?
because people think of music as a hobby, right?
Right.
And so
Oh, that's
it's
true.
like, just come play at my wedding. You're my friend. Just come play at my wedding? And it's like, well,
Right.
if I had offered you that as my gift to you, then sure, but I didn't, and I play weddings for $2,000, so like
Mm-hmm.
what? Or
Yeah.
whatever, then that was a random number, but and just kind of this expectation that artists are always willing to share their art for free.
Yes.
um, and I saw a meme recently that encompassed that idea so well. It was like, stop acting like art is a hobby and not a viable career path when you spend literally all of your free time consuming art.
Yes. So true.
It's
Mm-hmm.
just, it's backwards. Obviously, as an activist, there are huge conflicts with people getting paid for political work. In the healing realm as well, that's part of kind of the current issues with the wellness industry. People really overcharge a lot of the time.
Yeah.
People overcharge for stuff, and folks are desperate when people have a chronic illness or really debilitating trauma. People are desperate to get answers and to heal, and there are definitely people taking advantage of that. So it's like
Wow.
there's kind of two sides to all of these. There's lots of sides to all of these stories.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's so important that health and wellness be accessible. And if you look at our current healthcare system, it is not. We don't want to recreate that in the alternative health community. I think that, the answer that I've sort of landed on for now, at least, is I've got this monthly offering that's only $20 that no one is turned away for lack of funds. I have scholarship spots. That's my thing. That is so cheap or free.
And you do your
Beyond
free meditations on Instagram as well, I've seen.
yes, I'm starting a YouTube channel, so I want to do
Oh,
more free.
you
Yeah, I'm working on
are.
it.
Awesome.
It's such a journey. Um, all of the platforms,
Yeah. Yep.
and then trying to not be on a screen all day, right?
Exactly. Yep. Yep.
But I am starting a YouTube channel, so I want to have more free offerings on there. The thing is, a lot of people have a lot of deep work to do, and in order to do that deep work, the energetic exchange is big. If I'm taking 2 hours to really go into your world and like help you move this stuff, I need to be compensated for it. You want me to be compensated for it. Believe me, right? And
Oh,
so
yes.
I think that, yeah, it's a really complicated conversation. But at the end of the day, like, people have big stuff they need to move, and the people that are helping to facilitate that need to be compensated. But I've had to do a lot of money mindset work, and I'm still
Mm-hmm.
doing it. It's not easy, and there aren't easy answers. And when people try to say there are, I don't trust anyone who's like, "Well, you just have to shift your money mindset and just understand that, money's energy, and as it flows into your bank account and flows out of your bank account, you infuse it with positive energy, and that there you go." And it's like,
Yep.
and there's something in that, right? Like I'm not saying that's total hogwash. It's mostly hogwash, but there is a thread in there that when I first heard that I was like, okay, so right. I mean, if money's energy and it's being hoarded in the bank accounts of billionaires, like,
Mm-hmm.
we need to move the energy. We need to keep the economy flowing. Okay, I get that, but it's not an easy answer. It's not a yes or no thing. It's not a good or bad thing. And we all just kind of need to like dance with that and process it in ways that feel most comfortable to us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's very, very complicated.
Yeah.
It is very, money is very complicated. And I think it just gets more complicated in those kind of artistic
Right.
healing communities. It's, yeah, because there's a lot of expectations.
Yeah.
So,
One money mindset quip that I do like is what's in other people's wallet is none of your business.
mm-hmm.
And what's in your wallet is none of anyone else's business,
Yep.
right? And so I can't price myself based on like, okay, I think that they can afford this, and so I'm gonna.
Right.
It's like no, you gotta set your prices, have multiple offerings so that there's something accessible to everyone, and that's what it is. And then if someone needs an exception, that's an owner's discretion thing,
Mm-hmm.
right? Your strategy can't be like, I'll just take whatever people can give me.
Yeah, and that's something I experienced with my boyfriend and I. We run a cat rescue, and we
Mm.
did it more so upstate New York. And when we moved out here, it quieted down for a while, but we're getting back into it. But that was something that we would go and trap stray cats that people were taking care of, and people would refuse to pay us. They would be feeding these cats, these colonies of just a ton of stray cats, and they'd all be having babies, and then they would have babies, and it just turned in from one cat to like 100 cats. And we would go there and we'd say, okay, we were offering our services for free. We were like, we're going to trap all the cats. Our time is free. We're going to transport it to the shelter. We're going to get it spayed and neutered. We're going to bring it back because the feral ones we would return. And it was $100 to get the cat fixed and vaccinated, everything. And then the kittens, the shelter would take to socialize them, whatever, but they would ask for a donation. So we would say to people, okay, it's going to be this much. And they'd be like, well, it's not my cat. I'm not paying that. And I was like, but it's not my cat either. You called me. So that's something that's a big deal in cat rescues too. I was like, I'm offering every service for free. I'm not charging
Mhm.
you for anything except for the vet appointment. That's it. And
Right.
people would still just refuse to pay. So a lot of it came out of our pockets. And that was something, it was hard, but we said, if you're not going to pay, I can't help you. It was $100 each time, and it was just getting to be too much. So we had
Right.
to kind of put up that boundary, and it was really hard, but we did have to turn away some people. But there were always more cats we had to put in the mindset that there's always another cat that we are going to rescue with somebody who's willing to work with us financially. But it was really hard to say, like, I can't help you because you can't pay for that appointment, because I can't pay for it every time. I don't know,
Right.
people think because you're doing something nice that it should be free,
Right. Yeah.
which is hard. And it is putting up a boundary of what you're worth and what you can afford and what is in your wallet that people don't know. They just think like, oh, you're rescuing the cats. Go for it. Pay for it. You love them. Like, well,
Right.
yeah. So it's hard, financially, those kind of things can get really tricky.
Mhm.
So you went on this crazy winding path of your life. You were in all these different areas and careers and shoes and everything. So What is your advice for people that are on a winding path and kind of get those judgments from people, or they don't feel like they're on that traditional linear path? What advice do you have for people that are kind of struggling with the path that they're on?
I feel like there's so little absolute that I can say about that because everyone's just so different,
It's so
right?
true.
The only absolute things that I can say are super corny and don't need to be said. Like, follow your heart, be
Yeah.
true to yourself, and
Hmm.
it's like, I don't know. I don't need to say that. Watch a Disney movie. Um, that's why cliches are widely used, is because they apply to many different people.
Hmm.
Whereas, like, other things are more specific and don't apply to everyone. I think that for me, I got really set back by not doing those things, by not listening to my inner self, by going towards things that looked comfortable but
Yeah.
weren't necessarily healthy. There were a lot of moments where I was like, you know what, maybe I should just have a normal life and I should just get a normal job and I should just marry this person and I should just, and I had all these moments along the way where I kind of threw in the towel on being terminally unique and just kind of tried to go an easier route. That didn't work for me. That was never going to work for me.
Hmm.
I just had to kind of give myself over to the fact that my life was going to be, for at least that period, a wild ride, an uncomfortable growth process. Now I'm really glad I did that, but there was a lot of pain for a long time where I was like, why did I have to do all this stuff? Why did I have to do all these things that felt like a waste of time or a waste of money or a waste of energy or lose relationships? And I think for me, when I was young and I moved to New York for college, I told myself I was going to New York for college and leaving California and everyone I knew and everything I knew because I was an artist and artists need life experience.
Mm.
And that was my 18-year-old story. By the time I was 18, I'd already given myself some life experience with like bad decisions, right? As a teenager, like I had a DUI, I didn't have a driver's license, right? Like New York, you don't need to drive there. Um, but I was like, no, I'm going to New York to get more life experience and to kind of like meet different kinds of people and do new things. Now, today, I'm like, that is an upside to going a crazy, windy path. If you come out the other side, you've got some wild stories to tell and you've got some material, right, to write
Hmm.
about. And not just that, but I feel like I can be of service because I've had all these experiences with my clients, with the people I work with in recovery, with friends and young musicians. And I can understand more kinds of people because I've done more kinds of things.
Right, right. And something I love that you said too is that you realized that a lot of those kind of judgments were coming from yourself and they might have been you perceiving them as coming from other people, but that might not have been a reality. And I think that's kind of important for people. And me working with clients with teens, teens are very just paranoid about what other people think of them. And I just hear all day, every day, this person thinks this of me, this person thinks that of me. And I always say, well, how do you know? Did they say that? No, I could just tell. It's important for us to realize that some of what we are perceiving may not be reality, and that could just be coming from ourselves and our own insecurities. And I think that's really important and an important first step to going towards whatever path you choose, because I think a lot of the time, what holds us back the most is ourselves.
Yeah, I think that's true. And with teenagers, it's hopeless. Like that's
Yeah.
just how their brains work,
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And 20 somethings also, it's you can't convince people. You give fewer and fewer, right? As the years go by, and that is one of the blessings of aging. But then also something that it helped for me to remember. And again, there's no curing that for young people, but it was helpful to remember the amount of time that I spend thinking what other people think of me. Do I spend amount of time thinking about what I think of other people? No, I don't, because
Yeah.
I'm self-obsessed and so is everyone else, right?
Yeah.
If I'm not spending that amount of time judging them, they're probably not spending that amount of time judging me. And then also, if I am spending time judging someone else, and this is more advanced, it's because they're doing something that bothers me. And the reason it bothers me is because of what it makes me think about myself.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, if I'm spending 10 minutes just like talking smack about someone in my band who is always late and is super unreliable, and how can he be so unreliable? If I take 2 seconds and think about that, why does that make me so upset?
Mm-hmm.
It's because I know that I am often late and often at times in my life have been very unreliable.
Mm-hmm.
And I hate that. I don't want to be that kind of person. And so when I see someone else doing that, I get really mad. Why is it so charged? Why is that anger so intense and fiery and right here? Oh, because, so I think like all that stuff, it just comes down to like this really challenging process of getting to know ourselves and then getting to love ourselves, which
Mm-hmm.
like is not something that can just be done with a few years of therapy or with a few sessions of breath work or any of these things, right? For me, like it's taken a lot to even get to the place that I am with it and a lot of missteps. I knew for a long time that that was the goal. I knew for a long time that despite what my mind was telling me, I am lovable and the goal is to learn to love myself. And I sort of had my eye on that. And I was like,
Yeah.
okay, now I'm going to do this because that's going to like raise my self-worth. Now I'm going to invest in this program. Yes, I learned a lot of great stuff through all those moves, but also I was transferring that onto like other people telling me, right? Like, teach
Mm-hmm.
me how to do this thing so that I will be employable. Teach me how to love myself, right? That's what a lot of people are selling right now.
Oh yeah.
Um,
Absolutely. So
and
true.
I really try not to sell that. I know people will buy that, but I don't think that that's actually something that can be sold,
Mm-hmm.
right? There's no strategy. All we can do is like use these different methods, journaling, self-reflection, be it a 12-step program, be it Reiki, breathwork, whatever people are
Mm-hmm.
offering, like all of those are tools. And they're all just tools to get us closer to ourselves, closer to learning to accept and love ourselves. I had that as my eye on that prize for a long time, and I didn't know how to get there. It's different for everyone.
Yeah. Yeah, a lot of people don't know how to get there, but I love that you are helping people do that through breath work. I think that's so important. That's so amazing. Where can people find you? Do you have a website? What's your Instagram you want people to find you on? I'm going to put everything in the show notes so people can find your amazing work and check out your breath work.
Thank you. Yes, Instagram at voicebodyspirit, Facebook at voicebodyspirit. I have voicebodyspirit.com, which is still a website that I made, so it's not the most beautiful, but it is where you register for Breathwork for Collective Liberation the second Saturday of every month. Yeah, that's it for now.
Awesome. And
Working,
your
working
YouTube
on
is
the YouTube.
coming. Yes,
It's
let me know when
coming.
it's up and running and I'll post
Okay.
it definitely.
Okay. Thank you.
Wow. Well, Juniper, this was amazing. I loved hearing about the work that you do and just breath work in general because I didn't know much about it. It sounds incredible. And I am going to hit you up to join one of your sessions.
Yes.
So awesome. Well, thank you so much. This was so great.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
I absolutely loved talking to Juniper. Juniper, thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciated your honesty, how vulnerable you were, and just talking about your journey and the things you've gone through, and your unconventional journey and your path to get to this point of being a breathwork guide and vocal empowerment coach, and the things you did to get into that. I think that's really good for people to know that there are other paths out there. We don't have to just go to school and then graduate and then get a job and get married and have kids. There's other options out there, there's other paths. And I think that it helps for people to hear about other people succeeding in these paths, because sometimes it feels really out of reach and far fetched. And we're really fed this idea of, this conventional quote unquote lifestyle of just getting married and having a job for the rest of your life, and that's it. So I loved hearing about your journey and everything that you did to get to this point and how determined you were to follow your passions and your dreams. I'm really appreciative of you sharing that experience. Juniper is going to be coming on my Facebook group. I'm so excited. She's going to lead my Facebook group in a meditation session. So I'm really excited about that. Check out my Instagram because I will post the date and time on there. We're still working out the dates and the details. So that's really cool. Definitely check out Juniper, all of her social media. It's all in the show notes. You have to check out her band. Amazing. They're so talented. They write all their own music. So check out her Instagram for her band. Check out her Breathwork Instagram and her website. I'm so excited to share with you that I did go to Juniper's Breathwork session, the group session that she offers the second Saturday of every month. And it was so fascinating. It was my first time. I've never done breathwork before. Before this interview with Juniper, I didn't even really know much about it. I've heard of it, but I didn't know what it entailed. It was so interesting and such a crazy experience. My whole body felt like fuzzy and I felt kind of like lightheaded. I did follow Juniper's directions afterwards and I drank tons of water and I just kind of chilled. It was a really fascinating experience and I would love to try it again. I think because I was like kind of on guard about trying something new at first. I don't think I had the full experience. So I would like to try it again because I don't know, I'm just a little apprehensive about trying new things and it's hard for me to get out of my own head. So doing the breath work for that amount of time, I kept stopping and trying to get back into it. And I was having a really hard time like staying in the moment, which is just typical for me. I just have a hard time staying in the present moment. So I would love to try that again and experience it more because it really was a cool experience. And I've never breathed like that before. It was really interesting. And afterwards, so I can't remember how many people were in this session. I feel like it was, I want to say 8-ish or something. I could be wrong. It was last month. It was actually right after I filmed this interview with her. I was really interested in trying it out. And everybody just had raving reviews of it. Like afterwards, we kind of took time to talk to each other and reflect and say what we thought. And people just had the craziest experiences. One woman like literally started crying. I was like, oh my goodness. So this was really powerful for people. And I think it's something that everybody should at least try to see if it works for you. Kind of like Juniper and I were talking about in the interview, is that you kind of have to do all these different things and try out for your own self-discovery and reflect on those things, what works and what doesn't work. Like we said, you could try journaling or meditation. I said I really liked Reiki and acupuncture. Anything that works for you to kind of get you in the present moment, out of your head, out of these negative thoughts, out of these intrusive thoughts and these societal pressures, and just really focus on you, yourself, and that's it. Put everything else aside. So that is a great time to do that. And like I said, Juniper is just very soothing. She's very calm. She's very open and honest. And I felt like I could be very comfortable in that situation. So I thought that was really great and it was really cool. And I highly recommend you guys try that out. So like I said, go check her out on all of her website, all of her social medias. I'm going to post them in the show notes and also on my blog. So you will be able to check that all out. And if you are interested in joining my Facebook group, Juniper will be coming in there to do a meditation session, which thank you, Juniper. I'm so excited about that. And I'm going to be running a challenge in that group soon. It's going to be overcoming your negative self-talk. So I'm going to be running that very soon. I'm very excited. I've been working on the content for that. So join my Facebook group at facebook.com/groups /according to Des, and that will also be in the show notes. So thank you for listening. Thank you again, Juniper. That was so amazing talking to you. I feel like I could talk to you forever. We spoke for almost an hour and a half. I felt like just I could talk to her forever. She's so interesting. I loved asking her questions. I loved hearing her perspective. She has just so much life experience. She's tried all these different things. She's been in all these different hats and careers and positions, and I think that's really valuable, and it just makes her very, very pleasant to talk to because she has a lot to say and a lot of experience, and she's very, very smart. I love hearing her perspective and thoughts, and I would love to talk to you again soon, Juniper. Thank you. Thanks for listening, everybody.